Welcome back to our foray into non-Mendelian genetics. So we've already talked about co-dominance, and we've talked about incomplete dominance, and now we're going to talk about sex linkage or sex-linked traits. Okay, so this is still non-Mendelian genetics, but when we talk about, of course, any sorts of traits, we first want to talk about chromosomes. And one thing we already know is that we all have 23 pairs of chromosomes, right? 23 pairs of chromosomes gives us 46 total chromosomes. Now, 22 of these pairs of chromosomes, so 44 chromosomes, they carry what are called autosomal genes. Okay, so those are things that are going to direct all the other stuff in our body. It's that last pair of chromosomes, for males XY, for females XX, that are the two sex chromosomes. Okay, so 22 pairs of chromosomes carry autosomal genes, and those last two chromosomes carry these sex-linked traits or sex-linked genes. If you are female, of course, you have two copies of an X chromosome here, so you are XX. That determines the fact that you are female. If you are male, you have only one X. It's donated by your mother, of course, because she is giving two X chromosomes, or she has two X chromosomes, so she's donating one, and then your father donates the Y chromosome if you are male. So males have XY, females have XX. Now, there is, of course, a benefit to being XX. So if you think of these two X chromosomes like homologous chromosomes, imagine there's some sort of disorder that is maybe harmful to your health, something like that. It's generally a recessive allele that accounts for a lot of different disorders. So I'm just going to use a lowercase b. Now, on the other chromosome, you just might have the dominant version of that allele. So therefore, the dominant version is going to mask the recessive version, and you will not exhibit that disorder. On the other hand, if you are male and you have the recessive allele for that particular disorder, there's no chance that it could be masked. This Y chromosome does not carry another copy of this particular gene. And so therefore there is no dominant trait that could mask it. So if you are male and one of these sex-linked chromosomes is carrying a particular disorder, you are going to exhibit that disorder. There is no chance of any sort of dominant trait masking that allele. So that's what this is down here. All of the male sex-linked genes are expressed precisely because we only have one copy. See, there are no second copies of sex-linked genes for males. So sex-linked disorders impact males a lot more than females. All right. If you're looking at the Punnett square down here at the bottom, this is something we all just know just from random experience. XX, of course, is female. XY is male. And so if you were to do a Punnett square, you're going to end up with this 50-50 chance of having either a male or a female child. Okay, so every single time husband and wife or couple have a child, there's a 50-50 chance that child would be either male or female. And it's very evident right here in the Punnett square. Okay, so moving along to the next. Oops, I need to take off the pen first. There we go. Next slide. All right, so just going back over what we talked about on that last slide. So when we're talking about these particular, sex-linked traits, keep in mind 44 chromosomes carry autosomal traits, autosomal genes. It's only numbers 45 and 46 here, that last pair, that carry sex-linked genes, okay? So that's true for both males and females. So if a male and a female are going to have a child, the male could donate, as you can see here, follow the arrow, male could donate an X chromosome. If he donates the X chromosome, then they were definitely going to have a female for their offspring because the mother can only donate X chromosomes. So you remember, females are XX. So the female donates an X chromosome. If the male also donates an X chromosome, then the offspring will be female. On the other hand, if the female donates this X chromosome and the male donates a Y chromosome, Then the child, of course, will have XY for their sex chromosomes, and they will be male. So it is the man who basically determines the sex of the offspring, because he could donate an X or he could donate a Y. Females can only donate the X chromosome. All right, so this Y chromosome does not have a lot of genes on it. I mean, if you look at it down here at the bottom, it's pretty small, right? It only has around maybe 45, 46 genes on it, whereas X chromosomes, or all the other chromosomes in the body, could have hundreds, perhaps even up to 1,000 or more genes just on one chromosome. The Y chromosome, 45, 46 genes, that's it. But it does carry one very important gene if you're male, and that's the SRY gene. The SRY gene, carried on the Y chromosome, is going to direct the developing embryo to basically form testes. And so once those are formed, then there's going to lead to the production of testosterone and all those secondary sexual male characteristics that develop later. So without the SRY gene, none of those male characteristics will develop. So it's a very important gene for males. I do kind of find it kind of funny, the fact that it's SRY, because it reminds me of the word, sorry, which is what, we guys have to do a lot. We have to apologize, sorry. So it's right there in our DNA. So it's just something to be expected. One other thing, if you've ever wondered about this, we all actually start off in those very first stages of development as female. Probably within the first, about the first 5 weeks as an embryo, we start that basically the female blueprint toward development. It's not really until week 6 or 7 that the SRY gene in the Y chromosome is activated, and those male characteristics start to develop. So if you've ever wondered, hey, why do men have nipples, for example? Well, one reason is because the development of nipples occurs within those first couple of weeks as we're being developed as an embryo. It's not until afterwards that the SRY gene in that Y chromosome is activated and all those other characteristics begin to show up. All right, so one other thing that males have that females don't, females be very jealous. We get to have ear hair. So the development of ear hair is actually located on the Y chromosome, as in why? Why is it there? No idea. It must have served some sort of evolutionary purpose at some point in history. I do apologize, ladies. You cannot develop the ear hair that men do. But, hey, we each have our own, unique things that we can do. So this is just one for men. Going on, there are a number of sex-linked disorders, however, and as I said before, most of these are, seen in males rather than females, precisely because if that recessive allele is present on the X or Y chromosome of a male, it's going to be expressed. There is no chance any dominant trait could mask it because there are no homologous chromosomes. There are no matching traits to mask it. So if a female has a sex-linked disorder, that means she received that recessive allele from both parents. Okay, so some of the ones we're going to be looking at include hemophilia, colorblindness, and Duchenne muscular dystrophy. All right. Calico cats. So this is not a disorder among cats. It's just the fact that this particular trait is harbored on the sex chromosomes. So if you're looking at a calico cat, let me change to a pen actually. If you're looking at a calico cat, and you see it's complete, or excuse me, not a calico cat, but if you're looking at a cat and you see it's black, then that means that its genotype is X uppercase B, X uppercase B for this female cat right here. All right, she's carrying the dominant allele for those particular traits. Over here in the middle, this particular cat here must be X uppercase B, X lowercase b. Okay, so she's heterozygous. She's heterozygous for that particular trait. And that heterozygous nature is what leads her to have this sort of patchwork of colors, where she's got black, orange, white, all there. She's heterozygous, one dominant allele, one recessive allele. Okay. So you can say that this represents co-dominance. I don't know why it's doing that. This is co-dominant, right? Okay, so because that heterozygous nature is exhibiting still both traits. Over here on the far right-hand side, these orangish cats here, they are X little b, X little b. They're carrying the recessive version of that coloration trait. Okay, or if they're male, they are X little b Y. And there's not going to be anything on the Y chromosome, okay? This is a sex-linked trait. Sex-linked traits are sometimes also called X-linked traits because they occur on the X chromosome. So this coloration is not located on the Y chromosome, so there's no reason to put any letter next to the Y. Continuing on. In terms of sex-linked disorders, going back once again to hemophilia, colorblindness, and Duchenne muscular dystrophy, we've actually seen this kind of now in history. So this right here is Tsar Nicholas II of, oops, sorry, went the wrong way. Tsar Nicholas II of Russia, right here in the early 1900s. He was basically the leader of Russia. His son, Alexei, circled here, had hemophilia. Hemophilia, once again, is that bleeding disorder. So your body is not making the protein that makes clotting factors. You know, when you cut yourself, you want your blood to clot. So there's a protein, or a couple of different proteins responsible for that. Hemophiliacs do not have that protein, so they just continuously bleed. In this early 1900s Russia, when Alexei had this, he had a lot of days where he was just in a lot of pain, and the family was looking for ways to resolve this issue. So they brought in this weird mystic outsider. You may have heard of him before. His name was Rasputin. Now the royal family, this family of Tsar Nicholas II, was not very well liked at the time. So you got to figure this was towards the end of World War One. The Russian society was basically going through a lot of economic hardship. A lot of people were being killed in the war, and so a lot of people were unhappy with Tsar Nicholas II. Bringing in this outsider, this kind of guy that most of society looked at as being kind of weird, did not help things at all. He brought him in to help basically his son. He did somehow, some way, apparently help ease the child's pain a lot, and was able to sort of get him back to being in some degree of health. But just having that outsider in the family just added to the Russian society's sort of like dislike of the royal family. And so not long afterwards, the family was basically overthrown. The royal family was overthrown. They were imprisoned, and not long after, they were all executed. And that was when the Russian society decided to establish communism. You may have heard of like the Bolshevik Revolution. The Bolshevik Revolution is the one that basically threw out Tsar Nicholas II and established the communist form of government. So we did see this in history. It actually, you could trace this back. His hemophilia, you could trace back to Queen Victoria of England. So she was Queen of England during the Victorian era, of course, named after her, in the, I guess, 1830s, 1840s, sometime around that time frame. So Alexei was basically like her great-grand-nephew. Victoria herself did not have hemophilia, so you could say maybe her genotype was X big H for not hemophilia, X little h for hemophilia. So she was a carrier, but she did not herself have it because she had that dominant trait to mask it. However, Alexei, on the other hand, he was must have been X little h, and then of course Y. It's an X-linked disorder, so there is nothing on the Y chromosome that could mask it or cover it up, even though it's recessive. For him, it showed up precisely because he only had that one copy of it. Same is true for colorblindness and muscular dystrophy. Just that one recessive copy for males, and you have the disorder. Females need two recessive copies to exhibit it. Okay, so just finishing things out here. Of course, we know genetics plays a huge role in who we are, how our body functions, operates. But we do know that environment also plays a role in developing us and who we are. So skin color, of course, is affected primarily by the genes that are responsible for pigment, melanin, but it can also be affected by sunlight, exposure to sunlight. Heart disease and cancer can certainly be influenced by our genes. There are certain genes that direct the body to, make more cells, and if it does so in an unregulated way, that could lead to cancer. But our environment also does play a role there. So if you smoke or if you vape, you're basically increasing your odds of getting lung cancer. If you have a poor diet and eat a lot of unhealthy food, even though your genes might predispose you to heart disease anyway, basically you're just driving yourself further in that direction with an unhealthy lifestyle. So a lot of psychologists look at this, at the role between genes and environment, and they have determined, of course, that just like biology knows, that the genes play a major factor in developing, who you are as a person, but environment as well plays a role. So we'll end it here. But if you have any questions, please let me know. You have a worksheet that has 10 different sex-linked problems on it. I'm asking you just to do 4 of them. I've also included a video of Mr. O'Connor solving the first problem, just to show you like how to do this, how to set them up. But as always, if you have questions, please let me know. I hope you have a great day. Stay well, stay safe. God bless.